Hello, welcome to the program. First tonight, what price a life? That's the question a devastated Adelaide family is asking after the man who killed their daughter was sentenced to just 15 months in jail. Stacey Lee Brown was young and attractive with everything to live for until last July when she was shot in the face. The man charged with her death, Darren Schmidt, claimed it was an accident. But Stacey's family says that just doesn't make sense. They're also angry that information they say was vital to the case was withheld, and crucial questions were never asked or answered. As Graham Archer reports, in this special investigation, they're asking, where is the justice?
I was just absolutely dumbfounded to think that somebody's life is worth 15 months.
Thelma, this is more or less your shrine to Stacey, is it?
Yes, it is.
You've devoted an entire room to it.
To her, for her.
Her life was worth a lot more than that.
It's yet another case of South Australian rough justice. A young life taken and an anguished family left wondering who's standing up for them.
Going through court, we've been told he has had assault charges, road rage, attacks with people, yes.
He's also had orders to disqualify him from the possession of firearms.
That's correct, but that was never been brought up at any stage through the court trial period.
So he's had firearms in his possession illegally or has misused them
in the past. Yes.
It's a numbing tale of how a bright, attractive young woman, Stacey Lee Brown, was shot dead, but no trial ever took place.
He kept contesting no comment every time he was taken into court in the beginning of the trial.
Stacey's killer was this man, Darren Schmidt, and his gun ended a life of promise, one which had already overcome serious odds as it was.
She was a housekeeper in the Hyatt Hotel. Loved going to work, loved being around people, that she could communicate with people. She had excellent communication skills with people and just absolutely loved her job.
For those from more privileged beginnings, it was a modest job. But considering Stacey was abandoned by her parents when 2 weeks old, brought up by a loving and loyal extended family, including grandmother Thelma, Aunt Sue and Rosemary, and devoted cousin Anne, Stacey had triumphed and was on her way to bigger things.
She had a topsy-turvy beginning, but that never stopped Stacey from being a lovable person. She just had lots and lots of friends, and everybody loved Stacey. Everybody loved Stacey.
But in July last year, Stacey's promise was cut short by a bullet. On that evening, she was taken to Schmidt's place by friend Michael Bowe after celebrating her birthday with family. The story accepted in court was that Schmidt had spent all day moving house, leaving a loaded 9mm handgun on the kitchen bench. Here's how Judge Soulin summed up the killing of Stacey Brown.
Miss Brown picked up the gun and was playing with it. You told her not to play with it and asked her to give it to you. She handed it to you, butt first, so that the barrel was pointing in her direction. It discharged. She received a fatal single gunshot wound to the area of her left eye.
Michael Bowe, in his statement, said he entered to find Stacey on the floor and an angry Schmidt who ordered him out.
I received a phone call from my mum and I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe what she was telling me, that Stacey had been shot and killed. It was just something you didn't want to ever hear.
It was 3 days before the family had any idea of Stacey's fate.
We hadn't heard or seen from her for 3 days and she hadn't turned up for work that morning.
Shock enough to lose Stacey, but what followed in the name of justice made matters so much worse. Initially, Schmidt was charged with murder, but this was downgraded to manslaughter following the most generous of deals struck between Paul Rofe, Schmidt's lawyer Craig Caldecott and barrister Lindy Powell.
So the DPP, Paul Rofe, called you into his office to say what?
To tell us that the charges had been dropped to manslaughter, not to murder, that we were all to be prepared that he would get a very, very light sentencing due to the fact that he was pleading it was an accident, what had happened.
And then the ultimate insult, Justice John Sulan's docile acceptance of almost all of Schmidt's story. And despite stating,
"The maximum penalty for manslaughter is life imprisonment. I accept that insofar as this offending is concerned, it is at the lower end of the scale."
the judge gave him just 15 months, 11 of which he'd already served on remand.
He's got 15 months holiday. That's how I feel. I'm devastated.
But the really alarming thing is the enormous gulf between what Judge Sulan accepted as the facts and what the family believes should have been taken into account.
Do you think the agreed facts between the prosecution and the defence should have been accepted by the judge?
No, they shouldn't have been, no.
Even more troubling, the judge ought to have known there was more to this case than stated in the agreed facts. For starters, key witness Michael Bowe refused to testify, and the reasons were suppressed. But there was much more, starting with the gun itself.
Does it sound to you like Stacey would play with a loaded handgun?
No way at all, no. She never ever liked guns. No one would ever make me believe that she picked that gun up and played with that gun.
At no point did the judge ask why Schmidt might possess an illegal handgun, nor was there any suggestion of further firearms offences, despite Schmidt's obvious misuse of such a deadly device.
Why would he have a loaded gun in the house?
Where's the gun now?
We've never been told where the gun is, and we believe it was disposed of out of the house that evening.
So it's just disappeared off the planet?
Off the face of the earth, that's right.
Then there's the question of Schmidt's background, aside from his bikie connections.
You completed Year 11 at school and then worked as a panel beater. You left that employment when you had a disagreement with the proprietor, who did not approve of your relationship with his daughter. As a consequence of that disagreement, you were charged and convicted of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, resulting from an altercation between you and your then boss.
Judge Sulan ignored most of Schmidt's criminal references, but eagerly accepted those of his friends.
I have had regard to a number of references from friends who speak highly of you. All of them talk of your generosity, your loyalty and your strong family values.
Sulan went on to describe Schmidt as a devoted father and partner, failing to mention prior restraining orders taken out by his fiancée. But the hardest thing the family had to swallow from the judge was this.
I have little doubt that these events have left a deep impression upon you. You are truly remorseful for what has happened.
He never shed a tear, he never showed any remorse ever. His face, he never looked in our direction to even show any remorse towards the family sitting in the docks. There was no remorse from him.
But the judge went on.
You have no abnormal psychiatric or psychological conditions. You are extremely affected by what has occurred. You have a great concern for those who have been affected by these events. You think of the family of the deceased, and you think of your own family, from whom you have been parted since you were arrested on the 4th of August.
Has he ever made any contact with you as the family?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing from his lawyers?
Nothing.
No attempt at all?
No.
None of this seemed to register with Judge Sulan.
I have no doubt that you personally have been punished enormously, and you will have to live with the fact that your conduct caused the death of a young woman.
We've just got this great big emptiness, and we don't even feel like we've just got any justice for Stacey's death at all.
Schmidt had been drinking all that day and continued to drink. Aside from why he had the gun, even with the accidental discharge, the gun had to be cocked. And who would hand over a gun with the barrel pointing at their own head at point-blank range?
Stacey was not the type of person to touch anything like that or have anything to do with guns at all.
And the judge accepted what he was told happened next.
You telephoned 000. You panicked and left the scene. You telephoned a solicitor.
What happened when the ambulance came? They had to go into an empty house and find Stacey on the floor by herself? And he's saying he's got remorse for our family?
No mention was made that Bowe described Schmidt as angry. Schmidt says he called 000 minutes after the shot was fired, but the family have seen no evidence which reveals the timing of these events, particularly considering both men bolted.
So Bowe bolted as well,
Yeah.
Schmidt and Bowe both.
And left Stacey alone.
Schmidt contacted police anonymously at 1 a.m. to falsely report an intruder at the address, then days later made contact through his solicitor Craig Caldecott. But it's clear the full story has not been told. For example, Stacey's Aunt Sue, with whom she lived, returned home that night to a disturbing scene.
My chest of drawers, like a little three-drawer chest, was up against my wardrobe, and I turned the bed back to get into it, and it was like a boomerang. A wrought iron bed had been broken on one side.
She also found Stacey's purse and cigarettes left behind.
Stacey was very much attached to a velvet handbag, like a shoulder bag, and that was with her 24 hours a day. Her cigarettes, her hairbrush, everything went with her wherever she went. And that was all left on her bedroom floor, just like it was just dropped there.
Whatever occurred, the family say they are left with nothing but silence, anger and grief.
It must have been a terrible shock.
It was. I haven't got over it yet.
Made worse when the system doesn't support the family.
That's right, yes, that's totally right, yes.
Their anger is directed at those in the justice system, particularly the DPP, whom they believe settled too easily.
We asked about the gun, we asked about her phone that still has not been found, like just the keys of my house, the keys to her car, and he just sat there and said, "Oh, I'll just check into it."
What do you think of the performance of the State's Director of Public Prosecutions?
Pretty disgusted myself.
I think it's very poor.
And while at the sentencing the defence were present, and someone from the DPP's office, there was further insult to their sense of injustice.
When the sentence was being read out, where was Paul Rove? Where was Paul Rove?
Outside. When we left the courtroom, we found him sitting around the corner in the cafe, having a cup of coffee, outside smoking, and then meeting with Schmidt's counsel.
And if that wasn't enough, Schmidt expressed shock through his lawyer at the severity of the sentence.
He must be pleased with the result. He's still in shell shock. He's still waiting to see what happens, and he's going.
I don't understand how he could be shell shocked with the decision when he ran and hid, and all these factors come into it.
And last week, the DPP declined to appeal the sentence, which the family says has disgusted police.
The police are unhappy of what's happened, how the DPP put the case to the court, with the job that they've done, and the excellent job that they've done has just made them look complete and utter fools.
As we've been saying, if the Rann government is really honest about getting tough on crime, they need to address the real problem, the functioning of the criminal justice system. Who knows what happened that night, but surely an accidental death in these circumstances deserves harsher penalty. In the meantime, the family is left with nothing but a sense of betrayal.
She would want to know. She would want us to go all the way to hell to find out what happened.
Stacey was a fighter. All of her life, she had to fight all of her life. And I'll fight for her life that she was not just a nobody. She was Stacey, and she deserves to be treated as a human being.